G'day guys.
G'day, Carl.
Sorry about that, this is just so...
Okay, it's Australian. You can't help it. No, that's fine.
Mother was a kangaroo.
I've had the opportunity to speak to Chris, thank you Chris, about a little bit about what he's going to speak about today. Some of us may have remembered Chris, he's actually speaking here about 5 years ago or thereabouts, when he was in the lodge. A different subject, because I've since learned, of course, that Chris speaks on lots of different types of subjects, even Masonics as well. I just learned.
Not computers.
Which not computers. Do you speak on computers?
No.
Well, he's got a wonderful subject to explain today. I won't take away any of that thunder, and it's. I find it very difficult to Picasso. So I'd like to introduce Chris White.
Thanks. I'll go and stand over there by my laptop so I can change the Rotary cover from church. Thank you very much for inviting me back. Thanks for Ron for the phone call and getting me back here. I previously did a talk, I reckon, maybe 2013. To you on Turner and Constable, and I've asked a few people why the subject this afternoon is Picasso, and no one seems to know. So there we are. We've got Picasso, which suits me because he's a wonderful artist. I'll just set the scene. What I look to do. We've got it till about 2:30, so we've got about half an hour. To look at some works from probably the most famous artist of the 20th century, who lived 92 years. So we've got a half hour just to look at a few of his pictures. What I'm looking to do is, whenever I do talks, and I do talks all around for clubs locally, I teach at Fair Kites of a Monday evening and Ardley House of a Tuesday evening on various art history subjects. And I always say to everybody I'm talking to is, I'd rather look at one picture properly rather than me just stand here and there's another one and there's another one and there's another one. So I'm just going to show you a few pictures from his genre of work and look at some of them in a little bit of detail, and also show you all the different styles that he painted in. Because when we're looking at somebody like Picasso, it's actually like looking about 6 different artists where he would paint in his different styles. So I'd say rather look at one rather than 10, and we'll look at it a little bit in detail. If there is any questions, please ask. There will be one joke. Look out for it, because sometimes I do a joke and nobody notices, and then I can save it for the next time. I did hear as well that somebody's come here especially to see this Picasso talk. So if that is the case, I hope you like it, whoever you are. I also noticed, I don't know, the visitor before me in the visitor's book lives in Hogarth Road, which is another famous artist. So if they're here, okay. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at some of these pictures, and we'll actually, is there a way of getting these lights off?
There is.
Because that might make it a little bit more. So it might mean we can see a little bit more of the colour. This is a very, very famous picture by Picasso, painted in 1906, called the Demoiselles d'Avignon. And what he did, he changed the direction of art, because this picture is almost cubism. So what he said was, he's fed up, he personally was fed up with perspective and realism in art, which we'd had for 500 years. And so what he's doing here is he's flattened the picture plane, and he's given all these women here very, very jagged bodies. He's given them faces like African masks, because this was part of certain times in his career he was quite anti-women, because he was always falling out of love, and when he fell out of love he would portray women thus. And also there is the view that these women here are maybe from one of the brothels in Barcelona, where he came from, or where he lived actually. He actually came from Malaga in North Spain. And so that is a very, very important image. It's often seen as the hinge between the old art and the new art, because within another 4 years you're going to have Cubism, and then another 5 years after that you will have abstract art. Okay, so that at a certain stage is how he saw the world. And if he saw the world like that, then when he did a self-portrait in 1906, that's how he saw himself. Quite an amazing picture in a way, because this is how he saw the world at this period. He's still only in his early 20s, and so you can imagine he's looking in the mirror to have a shave in the morning, and that's what he saw, and that's what he was portraying. The very jagged edges, these very famous black eyes that he would stare at you. In fact, that is what he looked like. It looks very much like Adolf Hitler, in fact, it does. And in fact, going back to the picture there, last viewed, he could almost look like Hitler in that picture, with those piercing eyes, piercing Spanish eyes. So what part of his sort of his personality and character was that piercing drive that he had, and no one, it seems, throughout his life would get in the way of his most powerful driver, was his art. And he would have the women, and he would almost, in the nicest possible sense, take what he wanted from any of his relationships and then split them out and move on, and that would drive his art. And you can see it almost with his personal imagery as well. And there he is, 1908. That's what he did when he was 14. There is the First Communion, when he was in Malaga in northern Spain. So I like to show that in case any people here, which does sometimes happen, say, well, why did he choose this Cubism? Why did he paint in that style? Because he couldn't paint. The view seems to be that if he could do that when he was 14, he could have carried on painting these religious pictures, and he would have just been another, in inverted commas, ordinary, good realist artist. But part of his psyche and his personality said he was fed up doing that by the time he was 14 or 15, when he was in Spain. So then he went to Paris, to France, where all the avant-garde, all the new ideas of art were taking place. So that is what he could do when he was 14. There's another picture. The old fisherman, 14 years of age. It's in the Museum Montmartre in Paris, and it is this wonderful, wonderful image. He's captured here the character and the personality of the old fisherman. You like that? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that is what he could do. It looks, and he would have often in his time he would take images from other artists and adapt them. And this is very much like maybe a Rembrandt picture that you may have seen from 1630-ish. And then he would when he was in Spain, he would go to the Prado, go to the galleries, see some of the old masters, and he would take bits from them, including this, because at this early period in his life, he never actually had a movement or a style that he was going to paint. But because he was a very restless character, he painted by the end of his career, lots and lots of different styles. So he could also paint right early in his career, as you can see, these fantastic images of realism. Okay? Any easy questions?
Yeah. Did you ever revert to that style?
Sometimes, when it suited him. I'll show you one in a moment. Yes, he did, because he had all these styles.
Where was he born?
Pardon? Where was he born? Malaga, in northern Spain.
Attention.
This picture, you note the signature on the picture just there is actually Ulloa's. And when he first started painting at 14 and 15 years of age, he would sign his pictures Ulloa's, which was his paternal name. And then as he sort of made his name a little bit, he changed it to Picasso, which was his maternal name. And if anybody ever asks what his whole name was, his full name. His name in the Malagueño manner is Pablo Diego Jose Francisco de Paula Juan Necrocino y Maria dos Lemuridos Crispin Crispiano. That was his full name. I wonder he changed it first to Ruiz and then to Picasso. But that is their style. The style of Magdala was that sort of name, and so that was his name. And so his very, very early pictures, as you can see there, have got the Ruiz, the paternal, as opposed to the Picasso. So anybody's got a picture like that in their attic or somewhere, and it's signed Ruiz, and you thought, oh, that's not worth anything. It could well be an early Picasso. Okay. Oh, this is beautiful. This is where the guy is so different, is that at the same time he was painting the first picture I showed you, the Demoiselles d'Avignon, 1905, 1904, he was also painting this beautiful little child with a dove. And it's so simple, you look at that picture and it is so simple, with the way he's used the black outline to delineate the figure, with the little ball and the dove. There is a view that he painted the bird in the picture because his father was like an amateur artist. By the time Picasso was about 9 or 10, the father looked at what Picasso was doing and said, you can have all my paints, son, and you can have all my brushes, because he was obviously blowing his father out of the water. But his father used to paint the birds, the doves and the birds. So they think this is in illusion when his father died to his father. And the child, you'll note the sort of androgynous child there, it's neither a little boy or a little girl, it's because maybe it's Picasso thinking about his father with the beautiful, beautiful colours, very much maybe like Vincent van Gogh. You know, I said he takes bits from ideas from other artists, and so the sad thing about this picture is for about 35 years it was in the National Gallery in London on permanent loan. And about 2 years ago, it was sold because whoever did own it wanted to cash in their asset, and it's now in a private collection, so you can't see it. Is anybody going to ask for how much?
How much?
$80 million. Or thereabouts, depending on the frame. So, and so, okay. Looks like one of the Rolling Stones. That is. This is the absinthe drink. This is painted about 1905. It's in the Museum Picasso in Barcelona. And this is his blue period, where he was, when he first came to Paris, one of his friends had killed himself. No one wanted to buy his pictures because he was too modern maybe, so he lived in poverty. And he painted, they call it this blue period because it actually showed that he was quite depressed, he was quite down, and so there is a series of pictures from 1903, 1904 showing this sort of melancholy, also showing the effects of the absinthe drinker, because absinthe was such a powerful drink that you have a couple of absinthes and then it would actually do you in. In the First World War, the French actually banned absinthe because the French army would come home on leave in general and they would drink their absinthe because it was cheap and strong, and then they wouldn't pretty much be fit to go back to fight, and they banned it. And even today, you have to, by law in France, if you buy or sell the absinthe, you have to sell it with water, or give water with it, because it is so strong. And this picture, going back to what I said earlier about Picasso, one of his traits was he would take ideas from other artists. There is a very famous image by Degas of the absinthe drinker in the Louvre. And so you can see what Picasso has probably done here. This picture he would have seen, because this was all the melting pot of all these new ideas in the period was Paris. So all the Impressionists was in Paris. and this picture would have been in Paris, so Picasso knew these artists, he was contemporary with them, and so he's seen that picture, and then he's done his take on this. Have another look at it. He's done his take, last viewed, on that famous image by Degas. Again, there's a simplicity in the picture, but it's also very, you look carefully, there's like a mirror in the background, so maybe there is people you can see reflected in the background there. And the elongated figures of the hand and the fingers is very much in the style of Goya also. So there's a bit of a mixture there of where he's getting his ideas from some of these famous images here by, particularly by Degas. Okay? We'll pass on a couple because there is blue period pictures. We'll just go. This is Guggenheim, and there is this magic picture of this. She got a big mention in his picture. Sorry, it's Gertrude Stein, because she was one of the few collectors, the American collectors came over to Paris, and she started buying the Picasso pictures. Also Matisse, also some of the Impressionists, which is one of the because no one actually in Europe wanted this style of work. It was too modern, too new. Impressionism, as an example, originally was a derogatory phrase. It was, okay, Mr. Monet, you've done this picture now. It's only an impression. Now take it back and finish it. Get it finished. It's only an impression. And she came over, Gertrude Stein, with the Guggenheims and the Rockefellers, and started buying some of these pictures fairly cheaply and took them back to the States. And then, of course, as their esteem and their fame grew, now that's why there are so many of these pictures in the American collections. Metropolitan Museum of Art, Museum of Modern Art. That first picture I showed you, the one of the Demoiselles d'Avignon, is pride of place in the Museum of Art, in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And so there she is, and so he's painted her looking very much like almost an England rugby player. Because she's fairly, but that was her. She was a writer, she was rich, and he's painted her looking very, very monumental, almost in the style maybe of Michelangelo. Because his women figures, female figures, always look very muscular, as you can see in that picture. But she liked that picture so much that there is a famous painting, photograph, from a photographer, American photographer, Man Ray, when she was older, and she still wanted to have her image next to the image of that picture, which was in pride of place in her mansion in New York. Okay. And we've seen that, so I just wanted to show you this picture by Goya from about 1600. Where he's taken, look at the figures in the front there, those 5 or 6 figures, all the women looking in this is the apocalypse, and there they are, and just to see how, you look carefully at that picture and then look at the Demoiselles d'Avignon, it's maybe where Picasso got his embryonic idea for that picture, came straight from the Goya, the El Greco, which is in the Prado. You can see where he's taken some of it and Picasso did, for want of a better word. And that's an amazing image. He done 700 sketches before he done that final work on the Demoiselles d'Avignon. And this is one of his early sketches from his sketchbook. And you can see there are seven figures in the picture. And the more he tried it and adapted it and done another sketch and then another sketch, 700 of them in almost like a frenzy in 1905, 1906, before he came up with the final version. So although the picture of the Demoiselles d'Avignon, just have another look at it, because I like looking at it Be- go to slide. Because it is such a powerful image. And so you've seen now it's got some influence from El Greco. He's also using techniques that the Renaissance would use, in as much as he didn't just wake up in the morning and think, right, I'm going to paint this picture. He had done this 700 sketches, of which that is one. And in doing that, the technique he's using in doing the sketches and another sketch before he does the final work is exactly in the mode of Leonardo da Vinci, because that's his original sketch for the Last Supper. And we do a sketch, that's his first idea, and you'll note there that the paper wasn't big enough to put the whole of the picture on, so he's put those figures there, and these figures here go on the end there, and you'll note that Judas is on the outside of the table. And so Leonardo would do these sketches, just like Picasso did 500 years later. So there's the original sketch, and there's the final work, where he's taken part there, put it there, and at some stage in the development of the picture, he's put Judas, psychologically importantly, on the same side as the table, just there. So Picasso, although he looks so modern, is in fact using ideas from artists from the past, but he's also using techniques from the artists in the past by doing the sketch and another sketch and then the final picture. It's a miracle that picture, incidentally, still survives. Anyone seen that in the flesh? It's in the Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan. To give you some idea of the scale of it, that is that was added after the picture was painted, so the door was like they did an extension and knocked the door out. So, also bombed by the Allies in 1943, and the whole of the place, except for that picture, was in ruins. Any questions? Okay, I'll just move on for a few, because then he decided on Cubism. So nobody can now say, well, he painted Cubism because he couldn't paint, because I've showed you some pictures where he can paint. But what he did, he developed that Demoiselles d'Avignon picture, and he sort of decided at some stage in his mind that that is just a picture of Carmwiller, who was also one of his buyers of his pictures, an art dealer, and he sort of made him, he's camouflaged him into the picture. Because what he decided, part of his ideas was that if you look at a person, and you look at any one person, and I'm looking at this man, and I know he's got a left ear and the back of a head, but I can't see it. So Picasso said, why should that be? Let's change it. And so he's taken somebody's face and body and he's opened it up so you can see all the bits of it in from the same angle. I.e. it's anti-perspective, anti-realism, because he said we've had realism and perspective for 500 years since Leonardo. So it was just a radical change. One of the reasons he got away with it was when he actually started painting these pictures in about 1910, that really nobody really cared what he was doing, because he wasn't selling these other than to the American buyers for not much, and so there was no critical disdain about them, because it was just for that little coterie of people that he was painting for. And so it was only after, when they went to America, and then when the market started to take off for his work, that then they become, in equal ways, famous and infamous. And Cubism now, you can ridicule it, or you can say, yes, he did change the course of art. Because what he's actually saying as well is that the picture of Henry Carmwiller here, the actual image, the subject, has lost its importance to the actual form of the picture. And so obviously the next step was you don't need a subject anyway, which within 5 years later you would have abstract art. and total abstraction from all the permutations of that. Okay. Following on, this was 1910 he did his, and this is camouflaging a person in the picture. That's his wife, Olga. Somebody said, did he revert back to the realist style? This is painted in 1918. So there's his wife, who was a Russian ballerina. She hated Cubism. So therefore, when he painted her back in almost photographic realism. Because if he wanted to upset her, he would have painted her as a Cubist image. And so he didn't at the time, he did later. but so there is, so that you've got the same artist in 1910 is painting the Cubism, and the people are camouflaged within the picture. But when it came to painting his wife, she actually made himself, you know that first picture I showed you, the Demoiselles d'Amiens? He had that in his collection until about 1918, when he married her, and she said, that picture goes, or she does. So the picture was then sold. He had it in his collection all the time. So there he is, again, painting in this realist style. So again, it's like looking at two artists, Cubism, and then you've got the realism, which he could hark back to when he wanted to.
How much did he sell it for?
Not much. Oh no, not much at all. It was sold for sort of, in today's terms, a pittance, because it's all in francs and they don't exist anymore, but it was a pittance, and then it was sold to the Museum of Modern Art in the 1930s, also for not much, and now it's priceless. Any picture, any book of modern art would always have that Demoiselle d'Amiens picture in it. If it hasn't, you can take it back. It's that important, you see. Okay? Or Woman with a Mandolin. Again, he's made it a little bit easier here, but he's saying, look, she has got the face and bits of the mandolin you can see all over. But what this was very important for, camouflaging an image within a picture where it should be easy to see. There was a massive development of that in the First World War, with the advent of camouflage in soldiers, and they would start painting all these boats, they called it dazzle. And look where they've made them almost cubist pictures. And the idea was this would be that if the boats are going along, you can see the site, there's the boat, there's the people painting it, that's all they're doing. This is a picture by Wadsworth, 1919 Imperial War Museum, of these dazzle ships. And the view was that if they could paint the ships with all that dazzle to try really to confuse somebody in a submarine looking for a periscope, maybe from 500 yards, maybe it's misty and windy and raining. So if they can confuse them just for a second to make them maybe, and you can see, and the whole of the merchant fleet and the battleships, First World War and the Second World War, were painted in that dazzle, and it was all down really to the ideas from Picasso. You think of the beginnings of any military historians here, the French army, for example, at the beginning of the First World War, would have sort of a blue tunic and red trousers, and and they could be seen against the trees. So all of a sudden, this camouflage, which maybe had been started by Picasso, then permeated through. Done. He also reverted back to this Cubist style. This is a very famous image called Guernica. He painted this in 1937 in reaction to the German bombing of Guernica in the Spanish Civil War. And this picture, anybody seen this picture? So you know, it's massive. It's probably the size of that wall. And Picasso used to get up on a step ladder. There's photographs of him painted by his girlfriend at the time, Laura Maar. He would have to get up on a step ladder to paint the top bits. And it's also, you'll note, painted in black and white and grey.
This is an illusion that when he first saw images and the story of the destruction of Guernica, he saw it as a photograph on the front of a newspaper in black and white and grey. So when he first started doing sketches for this work, there was colour in the picture. But as it developed again over a period of about 4 months, all the colour gradually came out of the picture to the black and the white and the grey. And then he's also started using images from Spain of the corrida, look, the bull and the horse in the background. So the death in Spain, the part of the Spanish character, the Spanish personality, they're almost the idea that death in the afternoon from the Hemingway book was part of their culture. He's adapted it to this picture. So it became therefore a picture not just about Guernica, but also about the whole of the bombing and warfare, anti-warfare. There is a tapestry of this picture that hangs up in the United Nations building. This is also now in the, it's in the Reina del Mar in Madrid. And originally it was in the Museum of Modern Art, because when he painted it, it went to the Museum of New York to be, with the stipulation that it only returned to Spain when Franco died. And also on the way to the Museum of Modern Art, it stopped off at the Whitechapel Art Gallery for a couple of months. And the entrance fee to go and see that in 1937 was a pair of boots. Because you gave the boots to go and see the picture, and then all the boots went to the refugees from the Spanish Civil War. And there's a famous image of a pile of boots as big as this room outside the Whitechapel Art Gallery waiting to be shipped to Spain. So very, very famous image. With the, even though it is almost neutral in the fact that it doesn't show the actual bombing, there are still the people praying for heaven. There's the woman there with the dead baby and the dead soldier, etc., etc. So all those images of the horror of war are still in the picture, but it's become also almost now a universal image of anti-war and anti-bombing. Okay, how we? I think. Is there anything? Any questions or anything? Or anybody got any? I'll just see if there's a couple. I was told that the time will be. I'll show you just a couple more, two more to. That's an interesting picture. Once I start, see, I'll get to about 5 o'clock, and I'll just show you that see the figure with the hands up in the air. This is Goya from 1808. So Picasso has taken that figure particularly and put him in the, and that figure now appears there. So he's taken it and Picasso'd it. I'll just show you a couple more, just to, that's some idea of the scale of that picture. There's somebody standing in front of it. I'll just show, there's two more, just this one and one other, and then we can all escape and shop stuff like that. If I do a talk on a Saturday morning, which I do sometimes, then I usually say you can escape, go to the shopping and go to West Ham. This is 1928, and there is this beautiful woman, the mother, and he's done it in this, they call it the neoclassic style. And there is this fantastic monumental woman. It's called The Source. It's in Stockholm Art Gallery. And so at some stage, when he went to live in the Mediterranean, this is evocative of all the Greek and Cretan statues that he would see in the, you see them now in the British Museum. And there is the woman looking very, very much like a statue from pre-Christ days. And the source, there is the source of the water, and it's also the source of birth, where it's almost womb-like in her body. And one of the things was, I said, he keeps taking imagery from the past into his pictures, but it worked both ways, because that's 1921 Picasso, and our friend Henry Moore saw the Picasso, and 10 years later painted this image of a reclining woman, which is taken almost exactly from the painting I've just showed you. And there was an exhibition of Picasso in the Tate Gallery a year or two ago, and they had the picture I just showed you, the source, and next to it was this beautiful Henry Moore sculpture made out of wood, but he owes everything from that image to the Picasso. So Picasso's taken stuff from the past, put it into his era, and then his legacy lives on in other artists, including Henry Moore. I think that's probably our time. Okay.
If there are no other questions, David, would you like to do the answers?
Delighted. Well, Chris, I really enjoyed that. I've seen a lot of Picasso stuff in my time. I'm not the one who wanted to see Picasso.
Oh, right.
But I think one of the interesting things, it's still very, very difficult to understand Picasso. The one thing I have learned is I never understood why he made such ugly women on the cubist things. And you've enlightened me on that.
Yes.
Because he didn't like them.
He would fall out with them. When he was a lovey-dovey, they'd be all curves and all sweetness,
Yeah.
and then he'd fall out of them, and then they'd become cubist.
I've seen a lot of these. I've seen Avignon, I've seen the The thing that I did notice about Picasso that is very, very interesting, you dwelled upon. If you go to the Barcelona Picasso Museum, the stuff he painted is absolutely unbelievable. Little bits of cardboard, little bits of wood, little bits of paper, and they're absolutely brilliant. And even closer to home, you can see the one of his mother in the National Gallery. It's one of the most stunning paintings you've ever seen. I'm still struggling a bit with Cubism, Chris, to be honest.
No, it's an acquired taste.
With it.
Yeah,
And thank
excellent,
you very
good.
much indeed. And could we just record it in our usual way, John?
I could just say one other thing is I do talks and lectures locally, and if anybody is interested, I'm doing one at the Fair Kites in a few weeks' time on William Shakespeare. The theme is Shakespeare, so all the pictures will be about plays from Shakespeare. So if anybody's interested, I've got some information on it there. But other than that, thank you very much for having me. Hopefully you'll invite me back at some stage.
Just one more thing, Chris, if you'd like to do the honours and draw the raffle.
Oh, of course, yeah. Great, thank you very much.
218. 218.
216.
Over there, come on, Eddie.
Well done, Eddie.
I do not know the measurement next week.
Well done, Eddie.